In this edition of the Bucs Report, we talk about Jamel Dean's new deal. Everyone thought he was out of Tampa, but he is here. Then we'll talk about a Shaq Mason as he gets dealt. And then later in the show, we'll talk about the quarterback search next on this edition of the Bucs Report. Let's go. Well, hello and welcome into this edition of the Bucs Report. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms. You can find it on the Bucs Report. Check them out online, bucsreport.com. You can find it on YouTube. Just search for the Bucs Report. And of course, this audio podcast is available wherever you find your audio podcasts. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Bucs Minutecast. So in this edition of the Bucs Report, we're happy to have Jamel Dean on the show. Johnny, welcome to the show.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. So some interesting things for the Bucs here as they found a way to get Jamel Dean a new deal. Everyone thought that he was going to be out of Tampa. And what are they going to do after he leaves this team? What are your reactions to the Bucs being able to get Jamel Dean a new deal and have him come back to Tampa?
I'm ecstatic about it, man. I did not want to lose Jamel Dean. That would have been a lot of work that we put into him. You know, coming from the practice squad, moving him up and to one of the better cornerbacks in the league. I'm glad they got to work it out a deal. It also shows that the players are still wanting to be here. You know what I mean? That means a lot.
Yeah, kind of interesting. And, one of the things that I was thinking about, and I've talked about in the show, is there was a true magnetism to Tom Brady. Many people came to this team or re-signed new deals because he's here. And then you have some people that were kind of showing their true colors. Leonard Fournette said, well, I kind of came here because Brady was here. Now that he's gone, I'm going to be gone. And so some other players that, I think didn't want to come back because they weren't sure at who the new QB, that kind of thing is. But just to get one of the moves in place to have Jamel Dean, a new contract, that was a big thing for me. Also, Sean Murphy-Bunting is in that conversation as well. And if he is able to get a new deal and coming back to this team as well, do you think the Bucs should be all in on a Sean Murphy-Bunting deal as well? Do you think that he would be best served coming back to the Bucs?
All in, I would say not all in. I think they have a number set up, and if he doesn't match the number, then good luck to you or whatever. But I don't think they're all in on anybody. I mean, Levante David is hitting the market, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think the all in thing works for the Bucs right now. I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's just interesting there. I mean, a good thing for them to get Dean. That was my big thing. And, if you listen to a lot of the talking heads, you listen to Greg Auman, you listen to Rick Stroud, they had all said that Dean had played his last game in Tampa. But that was a big thing. The move was a big win for Tampa Bay as Dean was regarded as the number 4 top free agent in ESPN's top 100 available players. Yep. The Bucs were able to make the move by restructuring the contracts of several players. So some stability on this team as we go forward. Let's face it, there's a lot of uncertainty on this team now, just based on who the starting quarterback is. I think to a certain extent, a lot of players before they sign here or they sign new deals, they're going to want to say, who is the quarterback of this team going to be before I do anything? What are your thoughts on that?
You drafted Trask in the second round. I'm not for or against Trask. Okay. It's the numbers thing. If you draft Trask in the second round, okay, you have to play him at some point. You have to see what you have. Last year would have been the perfect opportunity, but of course we got Brady unretired, right? So now the timeline is so much shorter on whether we can what we can see from Trask. That's another year off his contract there, that rookie deal that you can play around with. So this year you have to see what Trask is capable of, or you're going to lose that rookie deal, and you're going to lose the ability to gauge what you can do with him. Okay. That's business. I mean, because that position, that second round pick, could have been a valuable defensive tackle or a valuable offensive lineman. You know what I mean? But now you have that there. You have to work it. You have to do that.
I mean, and I agree with you on that wholeheartedly, because you take a look at it, you don't really have a lot of opportunity to gauge what a quarterback has in the tank. It's a unique position. If you even look at a backup goalie in the NHL, they get some starts in there. But you take a look at Trask, who has redshirted his entire career, except for that short game that he played against the Falcons and kind of mop up duty there.
Right.
It's really hard to gauge him. And in that brief moment, you have to kill it, or everyone's like, get this guy out of here. He's horrible. It kind of puts a backup quarterback or a third string quarterback in this situation, almost fourth string. It's a hard thing to kind of gauge what they have in the tank. But I mean, I think the Bucs would be foolish to go out and draft another quarterback, being that they don't already know what they have in Trask. Or do you think they should draft another one and have the two of them duke it out, if you will?
Well, you have to go into the season with 3 quarterbacks on the roster, so they're going to have to draft a quarterback in the late rounds. I would not draft a top 3 round quarterback right now, not with the needs. For one thing, offensive tackles are going crazy out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
We lost Donovan Smith, and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing to people in Tampa, right now, you got Josh Wells or whoever coming in who never have every replacement for Donovan Smith that we put out there have been worse than Donovan Smith. Okay. So you have to go get an offensive tackle somewhere. And right now in the draft, after the top 5 offensive tackles leave, there's a huge drop off after that. Now you can find centers and guards out there through the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and even maybe into the 5th rounds, but the tackle position is not like that. We're not in the market for Orlando Jones. Okay. We don't have the money for that. You saw the money that was being handed out to these tackles yesterday, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's averaging 80 million 4-year contracts. And when Orlando Jones gets taken up, that whole market's going to change, because he's going to demand well over 100 million for a left tackle position.
Yeah, and just some tough movement all around. We're starting to see some quarterbacks out there find homes out there. Heineke is going from Washington to Atlanta. So, I mean, what I think ultimately what the Bucs want to do is they don't want to be the last one without a dance partner. If they don't know what they're doing, I think that they're probably going to have to try to maybe draft another quarterback. But there's being more and more talk about there that Baker Mayfield may be the next quarterback of the Bucs here. It's kind of mixed reviews, a bit polarizing. If you look at social media, some people are saying absolutely not, and some people are for it. Where do you stand with the Baker Mayfield? I know that we take a look at what he was like on the Cleveland Browns, but let's face it, that team has been horrible for as long as I can remember, and that's where a lot of good quarterbacks go to die. Do you think Baker Mayfield is a viable option?
I think they're desperate, because you saw what was it? Not Daniel Jones. Who was it that San Francisco just picked up from the Panthers? You know what I mean?
There was Darnold.
Sam Darnold. Yeah.
Yeah.
If Sam Darnold's going out there, Baker Mayfield. Honestly, Baker Mayfield's okay. I would, for a backup. I don't want him starting. I really don't. I'm much rather look at what's going on with Jacoby Brissett. Where's he at? He's still hanging around out there, and I like Jacoby Brissett. He's got a good work ethic. He's not going to put you in a lot of danger. He doesn't play hero ball. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Baker, plays hero ball. The same. We had that same issue with our former quarterback here.
Right.
And hero ball will lose you games. I'd rather somebody safer, more consistent. That's Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett has been a very consistent quarterback ever since he's been in the league, but he's always the the guy that gets the roses but never gets the date. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think you were referencing Jameis Winston there, weren't you, a little bit here?
Oh yeah.
He gets a new deal with the Saints. A $4 million contract is what I was reading here before I went on the air. So even though they have Carr there, that's their 1-2 tandem in New Orleans there. It's going to be interesting to see how that works out. But talking about Jacoby Brissett, former Cleveland Brown veteran QB, Brissett has been a viable option. A lot of people have vied for his services. Brissett appeared in 16 games with 11 starts for the Browns last season. He has filled in for Deshaun Watson, who was suspended for 11 games. There are a lot of teams that are interested in his services, but I'm not hearing as much talk about him as of late. Everything that I am hearing more and more is that it is going to be Baker Mayfield. And I guess for me, if it wasn't the Bucs, you think at this point he would have almost been claimed by another team. I know we have until Wednesday to do it, but I haven't heard any of the insiders, Ian Rappaport or Schefter, talk about him going to any other team. So it does seem that it is likely that he might be coming to the Bucs. But if Mayfield does come to this team, I think that it should be a battle, obviously, between him and Trask. And what's your knee-jerk reaction? If it's Trask and Mayfield out there, who is going to get that starting job? I know it's kind of just, looking into a crystal ball here, but what is your take on
My
that?
personal opinion is if Trask doesn't get on the field and start this year, now give him 2 or 3. I don't even think he needs 2 or 3 games. We need to see what he can physically do under the speed, because he knows the verbiage, he knows the playbook, he knows everything out there. He's been standing on the sidelines and studying this shit for 2 years, 3 years almost, and it's time. If he doesn't get on the field, then I think that's a big fail for Jason Light. That's going to be how it's going to be looked at. We looked at Jason Light picking a kicker really hard. Remember, this is a quarterback you picked in the second round. This is a bigger deal than a kicker.
Yeah, it is a big
and
deal.
I'm a fan of Jason Light. I'm not trying to tell everybody to go out here and start booing Jason Light right now. I'm just saying that's a big check mark on his record if Trask doesn't get on the field, because you wasted that second round pick.
Right. And I mean, this would be another time that they did it. If you take a look at Jameis Winston, another debacle, another missed thing here. And Winston was one of those.
I'll give him the buy on that. He was under pressure with that one.
Right. Yeah. And it was the Dirk Cutter era and all that kind of thing. And he didn't thrive. And, the interesting thing about Winston is he played somewhat okay with the Saints until he got injured. And now he's got that new deal there to be the backup there. I guess I don't think that there's ever any, realm that he would ever beat out Carr for that job. But they have, he's got a new deal and he's $4 million richer. So that's good on his part there. But just talking about Jameis here briefly here is that he held all kinds of records, positive and negative. We know that he was an interception machine, but he also led the team for the longest time in yardage as well. So do you think there was ever a coach out there that would have been able to get more out of Jameis Winston, or did we abandon ship too early with him?
I think our run with Jameis Winston was in large part due to Mike Evans.
Yeah.
Mike Evans came from a system where he did the same thing with Johnny Manziel. He made Johnny Manziel look like a star quarterback when he wasn't. I think when Brady came here, he said Mike Evans was the greatest thing a quarterback could have, right? He gets those 50-50 balls. You don't have to worry about that. He will get those balls. I mean, we've seen drop balls and stuff, but there's not a wide receiver in ever history that hasn't dropped balls. I hate the way that they used Mike Evans last year as a decoy, mostly because, he's got hamstring issues, and those issues come from running 2 miles per game out there as a decoy. Give him some breathers, man. Let them hamstrings work out.
Yeah, and it was an interesting season for Mike Evans as well. It seems like he wasn't totally in lockstep with Tom Brady. Tom Brady, let's be honest, he had an off season, and I know that he had a lot of issues going on, both personally and professionally. But it just didn't seem like he was totally vibing with Mike Evans. What do you think the problem was there? I think that Brady, to a certain extent, kind of picked his favorites and who he would throw to.
Yeah, because Honestly, the Mike Evans ran better routes last year than I've ever seen him running in my life, man. He was running great routes and multiple routes, not just fly patterns. He was running inside zone. He was running inside. He was running the slants and the outlooks and stuff. Um, I just, I think they just was using him as um, a decoy all year last year, and I don't understand why, other than that Brady didn't come into the house like normal and work with the team. He didn't work with the offensive line, which was crazy for Brady because that's what Brady's known for, is getting in early, making sure he works out with everybody, gets chemistry going. And I get it. He had a divorce. So what? Everybody gets divorced. I've been divorced 3 times. Come on. I just didn't get Brady last year at all. Frankly, I wish he hadn't come back from retirement last year. I was kind of over the Brady thing anyway.
I kind of agree with you to that extent. And I think that, when he looks back on it, I bet you he wishes that would be the case as well, because I know his above all end all was to come back to Tampa and win a Super Bowl, because Lord knows 7 Super Bowls is not satisfying. The 8th one would have been the thing that unlocked happiness in his heart. And he came back, and it was a dog going out with a whimper instead of riding high. And now you hear all these talks about that he might want to come back again. At a certain point, just let it go and move on to the next phase of your life here. All right, so after the break here, we are going to talk about the Shaq Mason and that deal there, and ultimately, what did the Buccaneers have to do to get cap compliant? We'll talk about that next. 2-1 Happy New Year from our friends at Manscaped. The ball has officially dropped, but that doesn't mean you have to drop the ball on your balls in 2023. Whether you had a New Year's kiss or not, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming have you covered for much-needed resolution of bringing sexy back. Join the 7 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use promo code MINUTECAST for 20% off plus free shipping. Let us have a toast for a new year, a new you, and a new you with no pubes. It's a new year, new balls with the global leaders in below-the-waist grooming. This year, take your package to the next level with the Performance Package 4.0 and other premium wet products. Inside the Performance Package 4.0, you'll have the Signature Lawnmower 4.0. The advanced skin-safe technology reduces cuts and nicks on your delicate parts. It also comes equipped with a 4000K LED spotlight that will shine a light to the promised land 2023 looks to be. A grooming routine isn't complete without applying Crop Preserver and Crop Reviver before showing off your 2023 self. These unique formulations take care of the smelliest part of your body and are a big boost to your confidence into the new year. Get 20% off and free shipping with promo code MINUTECAST at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com when you use promo code MINUTECAST. Time to feel free and sexy this 2023 with Manscaped. All right, welcome back into this edition of the Bucs Report. In this edition, we have Jamel Dean from the Bucs Report. So some movement around the Bucs as they trade Shaq Mason. It's a late round pick, a 6th rounder for a 7th rounder in the trade for Shaq Mason, writes Ian Rappaport. What are your thoughts on that? The getting some draft picks for Shaq Mason. It seems to me like it was all about trying to get this Bucs team where they wanted to be financially.
Well, they got basically back what we gave for him, which was a surprise because they were ready to just let him go. I mean, it had been reported that the Bucs were going to release Shaq Mason, and then all of a sudden there's a trade. That was kind of surprising, and good news. So we got something for him.
Yeah, because I mean, it was one of the rough things out there because everyone was talking about what is this Bucs team going to do? They're so much over the cap, but it was due in large part to a lot of the guys being team players. You take a look at Russell Gage, a guy that never really kind of lived up to potential.
That was surprising to me, actually.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at it. he faced a lot of injury, and he ultimately wasn't as advertised, or what we saw last year. He wasn't as advertised. I guess it remains to be seen what we have in the tank with him going forward here. But taking a look at Gage already had $5 million guaranteed, so this would provide $3 million in 2023 cap relief. The Bucs and Russell Gage reworked his contract to create space for the team, taking his 2023 base from 10 million to 7 million. So I feel sorry for him now, for Russell Gage. He is going to be quite the poor man out there, not making as much money. I kid him, of course, but good on him. And Vita Vea as well. He also restructured his deal, but it was quite a juggling act for them to have to do that. Cutting Donovan Smith, they saved $9.95 million. Restructuring Godwin, 15.14. Carlton Davis, 10.74. Vita Vea, 9.14. Jensen, 9.07. And Russell Gage, 7.44. You got to think that Jason Light has some pretty good accountants that can figure all that thing out, because Lord knows I don't think he's figuring out the math with all that.
Was Jensen a surprise to you? Because most people assumed that Jensen was only going to be there as long as Brady was here.
I'm in that camp as well.
And him restructuring like that, I was pretty shocked at that one. Happy, very happy. I know a lot of people like Hainsey back there, but Hainsey played in a basic pass protection coverage last year, and it was basically just circle the wagons all year. That's why we didn't get any runs, because the run protection was not there. We just didn't have run blocking at all out there, except for Donovan. Donovan Smith was the best run blocker we had. So,
yeah, I mean, Donovan Smith, though, the tough thing with him, especially towards the end there, he was kind of turning into a penalty machine, offsides and all that kind of thing. I know
the offsides penalties are unforgivable. Right. I don't mind the holding penalties and stuff, because that protects your quarterback.
Yeah, and it just seemed like the ship had sailed on him. I know that he played a huge role on this team. I don't think the Bucs were all in on bringing him back, if it was just the dollar figure or whatever the case was on it. But taking a look at Jensen, when Jensen got injured, for me, that is kind of what set everything in motion. Before he got injured, I looked at this Bucs team before the start of last season in the summer, and I thought this team is pretty stacked. Julio Jones and Russell Gage and all these pieces were coming here. And then Jensen got injured, and that, it seems to me, when the wheel really started to wobble with this Bucs team.
Ran
and
into subsequently, man.
Yeah, so I mean, was that for you? What started it all? Was the Jensen injury, or what?
Absolutely.
At what moment, as a Bucs fan, did you look at this team for the first time and say, it's not going to go the way everyone thought it was going to go?
As soon as Jensen went down.
Yeah. And it was one of those stupid plays, too. It was in a practice where two guys were just, kind of getting too tough, and it ended up just turning his knee. It wasn't even like he got injured in a game. He got injured in a summer practice. It was just very irritating for me as a Bucs fan. When you saw that at first, were you thinking to yourself, what the hell are you guys doing?
The first thing I did was grab the computer and start looking up centers that could be viable options. And then we didn't even look at those guys. And that's when I was like, okay, we're going in here with a rookie center who has to have chemistry with Brady, who just, by the way, isn't even out there working out with these guys. It's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, because in the summer they were saying it was going to be Leverett or it was going to be Hainsey, but none of those guys had a whole lot of time at that position. And
I give credit to Hainsey.
Yeah,
he did play well, but like I said, they played in a basic protection offense, man. I'm sure that infuriated the running backs. It had to, because they weren't getting their gaps. And when the gaps were there, they were closing so fast. How many times did we see running backs get hit in the backfield last year? Come on, man.
Right. And it doesn't sound like it's too easy to be a center for Tom Brady. It sounds like with all the baby powder and all the other stuff that's going on out there and working on the timing, it seems like Brady is very demanding for what he expects from his center. So for
all quarterbacks, let's clarify that. Now all quarterbacks are with their centers, because like Jeff Saturday and Peyton Manning, okay, you have to have a connection with your center, because your center is controlling the whole line. He's the one that's yelling out formation, the lineman formations. Okay. Yep. And so the quarterback center have to work fluidly.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that he did a pretty good job. I don't think that, he was ever going to be what Jensen was, and I
No.
don't think he ever really was that. And the interesting thing, as we made our way to the postseason, everyone thought, well, maybe there's a chance because Jensen's back. But this was his first game, his first NFL game of the season. What were they expecting from him? He was a center. He wasn't a receiver or a quarterback. For
Vita
you
Vea
to
ruined that for him. Vita Vea ruined that for him. Come back his first game when he got off his injury and just destroyed people.
Yeah, just killed it. I mean, Vita Vea is a machine out there. I mean, watching the games last year, I was telling the wife, I'm like, that guy just took down 3 guys. He's a freight train out there. And,
That's another thing. I really missed Sue last year. I'm all right.
yes.
Hicks is Hicks. He's a body who takes up space, but he was no Sue. The way Vita and Sue worked together in there was perfect, man. It was beautiful. You saw it revived Sue's career, actually.
Yeah, and take a look at it. He was playing in yet another playoff and Super Bowl. So I mean, he just seems to have a knack for finding the right team. I do totally agree with your thought on that. That I think that the Bucs would have been a lot better to have Sue come back. It just seems like they weren't able to come together with money at the end of the day because there was never a performance thing that I saw with
Well,
Sue
think
that
of
would
what they lost in leadership when they lost Sue and JPP.
right
Those were the two vocal
huge,
leaders on that defense, man.
huge.
You
And
have
you
to
take a
take those things into consideration, Jason. You do.
You take a look at JPP out there. I mean, just let's think back when he played. He was playing through so many injuries that the doctors were telling him, dude, don't play. And he said, I'm going to keep going till the wheels fall off. I
Yeah.
admire that about him. I mean, just knowing that he, to be a football player, you can't be a weakling and you can't let, an injury or, pain get to you. And he didn't do that. He
Not just
rose
playing,
above
but
it.
playing very well. And
Yep.
I understand that the Bucks got Tryon to try to be that JPP of the future, but it's
Not
not.
it.
You're not, dude. You're not JPP. We put you in pass coverage. JPP with 3 fingers is getting interceptions. Okay,
Yep.
and Tryon just ain't that guy. He don't have the moves. He can't. He gets blown up by tight ends and stuff. I'm sorry, man, but I'll give him some more time because you usually got to give guys 4 years to develop. But oh, I'm so frustrated with that spot, and mostly because we lost JPP. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it was a tough thing, again, just his work ethic is what I admired the most. And there was never a time, even when he was injured, he killed it out there.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? It's like some of the guys are like, well, give me a break. I was injured. Not that guy. He took on that challenge. So a bit interesting here. So I know we're really early into it. We're March here. What is your outlook for the Bucs next season? I know we don't even know who the quarterback's going to be. So it's complete conjecture at this point.
I on my NFL edition, I predicted the Bucs to be third place team.
Yeah.
The division in the division. That can change, but I haven't seen anything that's going to change that, in my opinion, yet. I got to see Trask. I think Trask can be a very viable quarterback. My concern is still the offensive line, and especially now with Donovan gone. What you going to put Wells or Hainsey there? Maybe Hainsey's a much an improvement over Wells, hopefully, because we've seen it when Donovan goes down. Everybody complains about Donovan, but whenever he was out, that position gave up. It was like a sieve just pouring water through there, man.
And ultimately, who replaces him?
Exactly.
That's my big
That's my
thing.
point. That there's nobody. Offensive tackles are not cheap. We just saw yesterday they're going for an average of $87 million a year. $87 million for 4-year contracts. That's $20 million a year. You're going to have to pay the guys. Okay.
Yep. And that's the tough thing is you could get someone that's worse.
Right. Yeah, because your option right now, the Bucs aren't in a spot to where they can go out and get Orlando Brown. They're at a spot right now where they're going, oh my God, we got to go draft a tackle, and we're at 19, and the tackles are going to be gone by then because after the first 5 tackles, the drop off is horrendous in talent.
Yeah, so you're going to get someone that's less than what they had in Donovan Smith. That's an interesting point there as well. I think there's a whole lot more to it. I don't know if it was a money thing or what it was, but it's just an interesting thing that they decided to move on from him. I mean, if you think
I think his crying a little bit about his injury last year might have affected the Bucs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's a possibility. I mean,
we're just talking about JPP's work ethic, and then we go to that. And all right, dude, if you're going to start whining, you might not be here long.
So then just, to end the show here, let's talk a little bit about the coaching. We saw that they have Canales, who's going to be the new offensive coordinator. Moving on from Byron Leftwich, do you think that was the right move? I mean, ultimately, a guy that doesn't have any experience. He was the quarterbacks coach in Seattle. Was that the right move?
Can't say he hasn't had any experience. He's been with Seattle for 17 years or some crap like that.
Yeah.
That's experience. I like what Seattle does with their offense. I like that coach that style of offense. A lot of play action, but they run the ball. It's not fake play action. You have to run the ball to establish the play action, which I've always felt was the right way to do it. If you're not going to have Bruce Arians standing on the sideline, then give me something like Canales brings to the team.
Yeah, I mean, I like his enthusiasm. I think that he's a real positive leader. Some of these guys, I mean, even taking a look at Todd Bowles and his post-game pressers, he doesn't evoke a lot of confidence in me. It's not like I see him in the post-game presser. I'm like, that's the guy that's going to bring this team to the promised land. You take a look at
the
this
accountability factor. Todd Bowles is reminiscent of Tony Dungy. He doesn't get in there and yell and scream and hold anybody accountable. And we just went through Bruce Arians, who does 100% hold people accountable, even if it offends people. You know what I mean? It don't matter. So I'm the Bruce Arians guy. I prefer to hear the accountability. I want to see it done. I mean, I want to see my coaches going out and slapping players in the head. Come on, man. I'm old school. So
I agree with that. I think this team sorely misses Bruce Arians, and we hope that, Bowles and Canales and this group can get, at least somewhat of a winning product. I think that sounds about the right third. Who do you think is going to be on top of the NFC South? Are you going with the Saints?
At the moment, I think it's going to be a toss-up between Panthers and Saints, man. Yeah. And I'm starting to lean toward the Panthers with that deal that they've just made. We know they're going to get their quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. So, we know they're going to try to get their quarterback, but it's hard to miss between the two quarterbacks at the top of the list. Although, if they get the Kyler Murray look-alike, then maybe not so much.
All right, Johnny Dean, I want to thank you for joining us on this edition of the Bucs Report. So say this is someone that's not familiar with the show. Where can we find your work?
You can find us at the NFL edition on Thursday nights at, I think they're changing the times around a little bit. 9:30. As of right now, it's 9:30 p.m. on Thursday nights Eastern time.
All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining us on this edition of the Bucs Report, and I'll talk to you again next time.
Have a good day, man.